Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cheryl and today I'm going to be doing a video review of The Elite. Now, if you don't know, this is the second book in the Selection series by Kiera Cass, and it follows The Selection, which is basically a dystopian version of The Bachelor. And in this future, instead of government, there is a king in the royal family. And the prince has finally come of age, and so he needs to pick a wife, and the way they do this is they bring a bunch of girls to the palace, and through a competition, he narrows it down to one who he then marries. Now I'm going to split this video into two parts. The first part is going to be a spoiler-free review, and the second part is where I'm going to go into all of my thoughts, like in-depth and spoilery-filled things. So for the first part of the review, overall, I did not like this book. I think I gave it a 1.5 stars, and the only reason it didn't get a 1 star is because I actually managed to finish it. When I read The Selection, I didn't go into it with high hopes, because of the premise of it. However, I enjoyed it. It was a decent read. It was a guilty pleasure read, given the fact that it's based essentially on The Bachelor. However, the writing it was okay. There wasn't really much plot or any sort of background development, but it was an okay read. However, The Elite was just, I don't know what happened. The writing was a lot worse. The dialogue was downright painful to read sometimes. And overall, I couldn't even tell you that I don't like the direction this book is going, because once again, there was literally no plot development. There was like one instance of plot development, and I'll discuss that in the spoiler-filled part, but just, there was really nothing. You couldn't even really call it a dystopian because it was just an awkward love triangle, the entire book. That's the whole premise of this book. And I was not about it. I'm sorry if you like this book. I don't mean to offend you, but it's not my cup of tea. I didn't enjoy it. I don't intend to continue with the series. I already know what happens. I already know who wins the selection. I've been spoiled on that, but nothing in this book made me want to continue it. And I know that a lot of people have problems with the series because of the author. From what I can tell, from what I've read, Kiera Cass and her publisher were very, very rude to some reviewers online, and a lot of people have avoided this series as a reason. Now, onto the second part of the review, all of the spoilery thoughts I have. Oh boy, and do I have a lot of thoughts about this book. Let's start with the basics. There was no plot in this book. Like, at all. The entire book revolved around the love triangle between America, Maxon the prince, and, oh my god, her ex, whose name I can't even remember, which shows you, I guess, how involved I was in this book. But the only instance of plot development in this book was a scrap piece of paper left, I think, outside of her door by accident that had plans written on it, but I don't know if it was from the kingdom or if it was from the rebels who keep attacking the castle, or the palace. But it was just a piece of paper containing vital information that was just haphazardly left in front of her door, and she was like, oh, I guess this is important, but she's like, I don't have anyone to tell about it, what do I do? But that's about it. That's really the only plot development. In terms of what the hell is actually going on in the world. In 2 books, she has given us hardly anything. So yeah, there was no real plot development, there was no backstory, there was just a really shoddy romance. So yeah, that's my first point. Then, beyond that, every character in this book was flat. Like, every character was flat. Every character was essentially their stereotype. That's it. You have the main character, America, who is just the awkward outcast. She comes from the lower tiers of society, and that's pretty much her entire personality. It's just, she's an outcast, she's a rebel, she does things the way she wants. Then you have Maxon the prince, who is like every other stereotypical prince. He's very guarded, but he also has a tragic past. Then you have the king, who's cruel and unjust. And then you have the queen, who's beautiful and poised. That's all their character traits that we are given. And then you have, like, all of the rest of the selection, which I don't even remember their names half the time, but I know who they are because they all personify, like, one trait. And you've got the mean girl, you've got the girl who's too eager to please, you've got the girl who doesn't really know what's going on. Like, they are only that trait. And I get that it's written in one perspective, it's really only written in America's perspective, But you would think that Kiera would be, in 2 books especially, would be able to write these characters in a way that gave them some depth. But no, unfortunately, every character in this was just boring. I just didn't like reading about them. I didn't understand their motivations half the time. They didn't make sense. And speaking of not understanding motivations, America is literally one of the worst main characters I've ever read. She's not only just like flip-floppy with her own emotions, she doesn't think things through. She doesn't make rational decisions. Like, in terms of the love triangle, literally, I don't even know how many times she flip-flopped between the 2 guys in the book, because it was more than I could count. She would, on one hand, she would love the prince, I'm ready to marry you, and then he would do something or something would happen that's completely out of his control, and she would go, I hate you. I'm gonna go, Aspen, that's his name. She's like, I'm gonna go be with Aspen. I love him, he was my first love. And then he would do something and she'd be like, nope, I love Maxon again. And it would just go back and forth, back and forth. And so she basically strung these 2 poor boys along. She would get extremely jealous when Maxon would be with any of the other girls, which, I mean, that's the whole point of the competition, but completely disregarded the fact that she was sneaking around behind Maxon's back to be with Aspen. It was completely hypocritical of her, and she apparently did not understand that at all, because she would just be like, I can't believe you would go kiss Celeste. Why would you do that? Like, and she's like, of all people for you to kiss, well, what would Maxon think if he found out that she was frolicking off with a guard that was her ex? Like, I just did not like her as a character. I did not understand why she did half the things she did. Like when they had that big presentation on national TV, and where she was like, I think we should dismantle the caste system. Well, like, yes, that's a good thing. The caste system is outdated and it's antiquated and there's no reason for it. However, you're part of a competition trying to become the next queen. Why the hell would you do that on national TV in front of the world and also in front of the king and queen who are enforcing this system? It just didn't make sense. It was a bad decision. I think the only reason she did it is because then it allowed Maxon's tragic past to come out, where his father has beat him and he can't say what he wants, and he wants to rule the world justly, but he can't because of his cruel father. And just, as I kind of mentioned before, the world building was just kind of non-existent. The most we got is the fact that the rebels are mad at the royal family for having the caste system still in place, and they're breaking into the palace to steal books, but there's no explanation as to why they're stealing books. There's no explanation as to why the rebels are attacking, and also there's no frickin' explanation as to why, when the palace knows that rebels are actively attacking, especially very, very violent rebels, why they have not amped up security at all. Why, in this one book, the rebels were able to break into the palace and get to, like, the selections quarters, or the king and queen's quarters, like, 4 times. And of course, they all happened to escape just in time. But you would think, even just as a precaution, that the royal family would amp up security, put snipers on the roof, do something that made it so that, you know, it wasn't, oh my god, we are running for our life every 20 pages. Alright, now this doesn't really tie into anything else I've talked about yet, but Kiera Cass does not seem to understand how foreign relations work. So the country of Ilia is trying to establish relations with, I think it was Italy. And so Italy was a country that until this point had been completely closed off to any sort of interaction with Ilia. They didn't agree with their caste system or whatever else, and so they were like, we don't want to have relations with you. But now they were open to diplomatic conversation. So what does the crown decide to do? Okay, they take the girls in the selection, because there are like, what, 5 left by this point, and they split them up into groups, and they're like, okay, you 2 are going to host the party that welcomes the Italians, and you 3 are gonna host the party that welcomes the Germans. I think they said Germany had already been an established ally by this point, so that wasn't that big of a deal. However, they didn't allow the girls to work with any sort of diplomat in the palace. They basically had to throw this entire party themselves. They did a little bit of research on, like, the customs and what these people expected, but that's about it. There was no, like, okay, this is how you don't offend all the Italians. This is how you don't blah, blah, blah. No, it was just basically like, alright, how's this party for us? Hope you don't fail. Like, that's not how that works. You would assume if they're trying to establish relations with a new ally, that they would go ahead and make it like, not essentially set these girls up for failure. And of course, America and her friend that she works with do wonderfully, and they get it all right. But, like, what if that wasn't the case? It could go so wrong, and then the crown would have missed out on an ally. It just didn't make sense why they made this rest on the shoulders of girls who, like, I get they're gonna be the queen one day, but you would think they would wait until there was, like, 2 left to do that, where they're that close to being the next queen, as opposed to saying, okay, here, there's a bunch of you left, go make the crown proud. Like, it just didn't make sense. Also, why the hell would the king and anyone really keep those journals and diaries that George Ilia, the founder of the country, wrote in, where he was talking about how he basically stole the throne, made himself king, established the caste system because he didn't believe, or because he believed people were below him. Like, the king clearly knew they were damning documents because he got extremely, extremely upset when America had read them. But why the hell would you keep them? Like, especially if you know rebels are attacking and actively seeking out books, wouldn't you have destroyed them by now? Or even destroyed them before, so that you would be able to maintain your level of, this is perfect, this is what we need, not have damning evidence that what system you have in place is wrong. Like, it just doesn't make sense why they were left. And maybe had Kiera Cass been able to actually explain it or give some background or go in depth in a plot, then it would all start to come together. But really, there was, in this book in general, just a lot of weird things thrown together and mashed into a novel. And overall, I hated it. I'm sorry. I hated this book so much. And the more and more I talk about it, the more and more angry I get. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought about this book, and if I should continue on with The One, which I think is the title for the next book. So yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!